The darkness of a winter's night clings to the stone walls of the Tower of London like a shroud. It's December 24, 1483, and Edward IV lies on his deathbed in Westminster Palace. You have to understand that this is no ordinary king. He's the last Yorkist monarch of England, and his demise sets off a chain reaction of events that will change the course of history. Edward's fragile body is racked with pain as he tries to rally his strength for one final confrontation. His wife, Elizabeth Woodville, frantically rushes between the king's bedside and the door, trying to keep at bay the ambitious men who seek to exploit her husband's weakened state. In this room, a desperate struggle plays out, hidden from public view. Edward knows that if he dies, his young sons, Edward V and Richard of Shrewsbury, will be vulnerable to the machinations of those around them. You might think you know what happens next, but trust me, you don't. The truth about these two princes is more sinister than you could ever imagine. I'm not talking just about their fate, I'm talking about the people who sought to manipulate and destroy them. Their lives were mere pawns in a game of power and ambition. In this room, amidst the king's final moments, one man stands out, Richard III, Edward's own brother and the Duke of Gloucester. He looks on with an intensity that borders on desperation. What is he thinking? Is he mourning the loss of his brother or calculating how to use it for his own gain? The king's voice grows weaker as he utters a single, chilling phrase, "Remember, my sons." The words hang in the air like a challenge, and Richard III's eyes seem to burn with an inner fire. What does he hear in those words? Is it a warning or a command? You have to understand that on this fateful night, Richard III's fate was all but sealed. He knew his brother Edward IV was dying, and with him, the last shred of legitimacy for his own claim to the throne. As he stands in this room, surrounded by the king's closest advisors, you can almost see the wheels turning in his mind. But what's driving Richard III at this moment? Is it loyalty to his family or a ruthless ambition that's been growing all these years? He's been marginalized, kept at arm's length by Edward IV, forced to play second fiddle to the king's favorites. You can almost hear the simmering anger in his voice as he utters words of comfort to the dying king. The king's voice grows weaker as he speaks, but one phrase stands out like a challenge, "Remember, my sons." The words hang in the air, heavy with meaning, and Richard III's eyes seem to burn with an inner fire. What does he hear in those words? Is it a warning or a command? The king's advisors exchange uneasy glances. They know what this means. They've seen the way Edward IV has treated his brother over the years, keeping him at bay, never quite trusting him. And now, with the king dying, Richard III sees an opportunity he may not get again. As you watch Richard III, try to read his expression. Is it genuine sorrow or a calculating gaze? You have to understand that this is no idle speculation. We're dealing with lives here, lives that will soon be torn apart by the very people who claim to protect them. The king's advisors exchange uneasy glances. They know what this means. They've seen the way Edward IV has treated his brother over the years, keeping him at bay, never quite trusting him. And now, with the king dying, Richard III sees an opportunity he may not get again. You have to understand that this is no idle speculation. We're dealing with lives here, lives that will soon be torn apart by the very people who claim to protect them. The Tower of London looms in the background, its stone walls a constant reminder of the power struggle unfolding before our eyes. The king's advisors are aware of Richard's ambition, but they also know he has always been a man to keep his cards close to his chest. They recall the words of Edward IV's own mother, Cecily Neville, beware Richard, was it a warning or a command? Was she urging her son to be cautious around his brother, or trying to instill in him a sense of dread? You have to wonder what secrets were being kept behind closed doors as the king's health began to fail. Were there whispers of treason, of rebellion? The truth is lost to history, but one thing is certain, with Edward IV on his deathbed, Richard III was ready to seize power. But that's not what the records actually show. They recall the words of Edward IV's own mother, Cecily Neville, beware Richard, was it a warning or a command? Was she urging her son to be cautious around his brother, or trying to instill in him a sense of dread? You have to wonder what secrets were being kept behind closed doors as the king's health began to fail. Were there whispers of treason, of rebellion? the truth is lost to history, but one thing is certain: with Edward IV on his deathbed, Richard III was ready to seize power. But what did that mean for Edward's own children, Edward V and Richard, Duke of York? Their fate hung precariously in the balance. Their father, now a mere shell of his former self, had done nothing to protect them from their uncle's ambitions. Was this neglect, or was he simply resigned to the fact that they would soon be facing life without him? And yet, it said that Edward IV himself named Richard as Lord High Admiral in 1473, a position of great power and influence. You have to ask yourself, what did this say about their relationship? Was it a sign of trust, or a clever ploy by Richard to further his own interests? Edward V and Richard, Duke of York, were left alone and vulnerable, surrounded by their uncle's trusted allies, men like Sir James Tyrrell and Sir Robert Brackenbury. What did these men know about the fate that awaited the young princes? And yet, it said that Edward IV himself named Richard as Lord High Admiral in 1473, a position of great power and influence. You have to ask yourself, what did this say about their relationship? Was it a sign of trust, or a clever ploy by Richard to further his own interests? You've seen the rise of Richard's ambition thus far, but perhaps you thought him bound by family ties to Edward V, that these princes were safe under the protection of their uncle. But consider this: if Edward IV truly believed in his son's safety, would he have given such a powerful position to his brother? We know now that the atmosphere at court was one of unease and suspicion, as tensions rose between the Woodvilles, Edward V's mother's family, and the Nevilles, Richard's allies. You can almost smell the smoke of rebellion hanging over London, even in these quiet moments. What secrets were being whispered in dark corridors and private chambers? Were they about Richard's growing power, or something more sinister? The princes themselves seemed oblivious to the danger gathering around them. Edward V was a carefree youth, still enjoying the privileges of his royal status. But Richard was learning fast. You've seen how he manipulated those around him, using his charm and good looks to get what he wanted. But now you must consider this: did Edward IV truly see him as a threat, or was he merely indulging in family rivalry? The answer lies in the months that followed, as Richard's ambition would lead him down a path from which there was no return. And at its heart, the murder of the princes in the Tower, an event so shocking, so audacious, it would change the course of English history forever. You've seen how Richard manipulated those around him, using his charm and good looks to get what he wanted. But now you must consider this: did Edward IV truly see him as a threat, or was he merely indulging in family rivalry? As the months passed, Richard's ambition would lead him down a path from which there was no return. He began to make overtures to the powerful Woodville family, his mother-in-law's relatives, forging alliances that would help secure his claim to the throne. But these relationships came at a price. Richard started to isolate Edward IV, playing on the king's fears of being supplanted by his own son. The air was thick with tension as the two men danced around each other, a delicate balancing act that would eventually tip into disaster. Edward IV, once so confident in his authority, began to doubt himself. His health was faltering, and Richard saw an opportunity to strike while the iron was hot. But how far would he go? In June of 1483, Edward IV died suddenly, or so it seemed. The official account would have you believe that the king's passing was due to natural causes, but you've seen the way Richard operated. As word spread of the king's demise, a wave of shock and grief swept through London. But in the midst of this mourning, something sinister lurked beneath the surface. The princes in the Tower, Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, remained imprisoned in the fortress of the Tower. And now, with their father gone, they were at the mercy of one man, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. But that's not what the records actually show. As word spread of the king's demise, a wave of shock and grief swept through London. But you've seen how Richard operated, haven't you? He was a master manipulator, always playing multiple angles at once. You have to understand that with Edward IV gone, the path to the throne just got a whole lot clearer for one man, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. His name is whispered in every dark alleyway and smoke-filled tavern from London Bridge to Westminster. The question on everyone's lips: who will be next? The princes in the Tower, Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, remain imprisoned in the fortress of the Tower. Their father's passing has only strengthened their position. They're still technically the rightful heirs, after all. But with their parents gone, who'll stand up for them now? The wind carries 1,000 anxious whispers through the tower walls at night. But that's not what the records actually show, or at least, not according to the official account. According to legend, Edward IV's passing was due to natural causes, some vague illness or other that just ran its course. You've seen how Richard operates, you know better than to trust anything that comes out of Whitehall. Now, with their father gone and no one left to speak for them, the princes are at the mercy of one man, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. And what does he have planned for them? That's the question everyone's been asking themselves in hushed tones from dawn till dusk. The darkness gathering outside the tower walls is palpable, and it's not just the autumn chill that brings a shiver down your spine. You can almost hear the wheels turning, the gears clicking into place as Richard Gloucester sets his sights on the ultimate prize, the throne itself. As the days tick by, the prince's fate hangs precariously in the balance. You have to understand, Richard's ambition knows no bounds, and with Edward IV on his tombstone, the path to the throne is wide open. The Duke of Gloucester has been quietly gathering allies, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And what better target than two young princes who hold the key to a legitimate claim to the throne? Their very existence threatens Richard's own legitimacy, and with it, his chance at power. In the dead of night, the sound of muffled footsteps echoes through the tower's corridors. The princes, Edward and Richard, are dragged from their chambers, never to be seen again. The rumors spread like wildfire. They've been spirited away to a secret location, perhaps even murdered. But we know better. We know that on June 25, 1483, the princes were indeed murdered in the tower. And it's here, in this very moment, that Richard Gloucester finally secures his claim to the throne. The ultimate prize he's been chasing is within his grasp. The truth about the prince's murder has haunted us for centuries, a dark stain on the reputation of Richard III. But what if I told you there's more to this story? What if I said that the events unfolding in Whitehall are not just a tale of royal intrigue, but a harbinger of a far greater catastrophe? The prince's fate serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the devastating consequences of playing with fire. But it's also a reminder that even in the darkest corners of history, there are still secrets waiting to be uncovered.